Welcome back everybody to Sculptober Day 27. I am Follygon and today's theme is mischief. I'm going to be working off of this adorable illustration from Samantha Germain. But before we get in and talk about the process, click that subscribe button if you're new around here and check out gumroad.com/Follygon for things like my courses, brushes, and materials. Meowth is such an iconic design and I've looked at him 1,000 times, but I've never actually realized that up by the coin on his forehead, he has two whiskers up there, and they actually kind of look like antennae. And because I started creating those first, it was feeling really awkward, so I had to get that coin in there pretty quick after that. So I think Meowth, and maybe all Pokemon, might just actually be aliens, but it really felt like antenna, and it still kind of does until I start to get more of the parts in there. It's funny how you can look at a design like this and, see it, like I said, 1,000 times and not think twice about one little aspect of it. And until you start creating it yourself, you don't really pick up on little things like a cat having antenna. I don't think they're supposed to be antenna though. Like I said, I think they're just extra whiskers to help frame that coin a little bit better, bring more attention to it, create more high density detail. It's a little bit of a technique for I was going to say simplistic designs, but really any kind of design. But moving on here, we are creating the mouth next. I have done similar techniques like what I'm doing right here in the past. For a couple other characters, I did this exact technique actually on the Alice sculpt way back in our first week or so of Sculptober. So this involves using what's called a live boolean, specifically a subtractive boolean, to create a positive piece of geometry that I slot into the shape of the head, and then I turn it into a subtraction and remove that from the head. And what's really cool about ZBrush with using this feature called Live Boolean, you can actually pre-visualize all of this on the fly. So if you want to make an adjustment to the shape like I'm doing right now, you can do that. If you want to move it around, you can do that. If you want to rotate it, you can do anything you want with it and pre-visualize what that Boolean looks like all in real time. It's super cool. It's been around for a while. I know a lot of people don't like to upgrade their software, but ZBrush always gives out free updates. They have for as long as I've used it, and as long as the software has existed for almost 20 years now, if not a little bit longer. So if you don't have the latest version, I would definitely recommend updating. Moving on to adjusting things like the ears to give them a little bit more roundness, as well as adding the color and offsetting those for a little bit of asymmetry. You can see that I've already started to model in a lot of the asymmetry here in the earlier stages. Normally I wait till the end if you guys have watched a lot of the Sculptober videos in the past, or any of my videos, but sometimes it's just easier to do it as I'm kind of going through the process depending on how simple it's going to be. For something like this, I wanted to finish the face first before I went on to do the body, so I got most of the stuff done up there. I'll make some smaller tweaks later, but I wanted to get most of that done before I did the body. Then for the body, a super simple sphere, some cylinders for the legs, and another sphere for the feet that I chop off on the bottom and begin adjusting that shape even further. For all of these shapes, I apply some fundamentals like taper and contrast to make the shapes more visually interesting. Taper is a really big one here when you're talking about limbs. You don't want to have these long parallel lines in the silhouette, so starting to get some thick to thin or vice versa in those shapes can add a lot of visual interest. And adding contrast is something we've talked about in the past here as well. A lot of different techniques for adding that, but now I'm just kind of working on proportions before I continue on to the tail. I want to make sure that things relative to the size of the head are feeling okay, so I do some quick adjustments there, and then very quickly draw in the curve of the tail using my curve tube snap brush. I've adjusted the curve settings, which you can find in the stroke palette, to adjust the size of the thickness for your tube of geometry. I've made it go from a thinner segment to a thicker segment. You can play around with that however you want. You can make it go from thick to thin or thin to thick to thin. Sky's really the limit there. But a lot of powerful adjustments there with that tool. A lot of people don't know that you can adjust your curve brushes to that extent, but I use it quite frequently here to great effect, and it saves quite a bit of time. The arms, I simply duplicate my legs and throw those back up towards the top of the body and do some proportional scaling to make them fit a little bit better. And then I start working on the hands, which are just a simple sphere that I throw a couple more spheres on for working on the toe beans, so I've heard them called. maybe in this case, finger beans? I don't know. Meowth definitely has hands. He walks on his hind legs, or at least the Meowth in the anime walks on his hind legs. I'm not sure if all Meowths walk on their hind legs, though. I think that one might be a little special. I think he's the only Meowth that can talk as well, if I remember correctly. I specifically remember an episode where Meowth was, I think, like hiding away in like the ceiling or something, listening into a class where they were essentially teaching some kind of, English or language class. English in the version I watched, obviously. But I remember them doing the tongue twister of she sells seashells by the seashore.
She sells seashells by the seashore.
She sells seashells by the seashore.
She sells seashells by the seashore? Huh?
Excellent.
Hey! She sells seashells!
And Meowth just repeating that over and over and over again. It was such a goofy explanation for why the Pokemon could talk, and it makes me wonder if all Pokemon could learn to speak, if Meowth can. Maybe he's just really smart, I don't know. Like Ash's Pikachu has been around people talking for a long time, why can't Pikachu talk? So the hands, again, just some more spheres there for the pads on those. Very simplistic stuff. And then just the process of combining pieces of geometry, blending them, softening, cleaning up, all that good stuff to get things feeling nice and connected throughout that entire area. A little bit of proportional adjustments to areas like the tail, a little bit of cleanup to add some subdivisions, fixed poly paint, and steps to adjust the form as much as possible just to clean it up. Then for the eye, I use a curved tube snap brush once again to begin creating a couple tubes to combine into that basic kind of winking eye shape, get that in place, get that feeling really nice. Then I clean up and merge those together, doing some processes like Dynamesh to boolean them, and then ZRemesh to clean up that geometry further. And that is pretty much it for the main portion of the sculpt, other than some last minute tweaks to the proportions of the body. The last thing here I do before breaking symmetry even further is adding some of the lines to the coin. I said I wanted to do most of the asymmetry stuff here to the face. Before I worked on the body, I just kind of left off that one part there. So I go ahead and get that in, again with a live boolean using a negative subtraction, using cubes that I've stretched out and pushed into the surface a little bit to create that effect. Then into posing here with transpose master, I make two main changes here. I rotate the larger form of the body, I rotate the hand into place, and I said two changes, but there's actually a third one here, and that is rotating the head to adjust that angle a little bit. It felt like it was looking down, so I wanted to adjust that to make it feel like the character was looking up at the camera a little bit better. And the last thing that I do here is creating some quick teeth, as that had been something that I forgot to put in the mouth earlier. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you are new around here, click that subscribe button. And if you want to download things like my brushes, materials, or check out some of my courses to learn more about digital sculpting, click the link down in the description to gumroad.com/Follygon. We're nearing the end of Sculptober here. That was day 27, Mischief. And I'll see you again in the next video with the prompt adventure.